Today on Grid Live Pre-Race, we'll preview the Talladega race for the NASCAR Cup Series and the playoff scenario entering the weekend. IndyCar has 2 races left, 1 race down, another race today. We'll talk all about that, and Formula One, Honda is leaving at the end of 2021.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Grid Live Pre-Race Show. I'm Kobe Lambert from the PodiumFinish.net, and right here with me is Joe Samniego. Joe, how are you doing today?
So far, so good. It's going to be an exciting weekend. We only got IndyCar, NASCAR, but a lot still to talk about. So,
yeah, definitely a lot to talk about. And special welcome to USRN, the Ultimate Sports Radio Network. To all of our listeners over there, glad to have you aboard today. And be sure to chat or comment with your questions and opinions. And down in the comments box, definitely want to hear what you have to say today. And we're going to start off with the NASCAR Cup Series race at Talladega.
Traditionally with Talladega, we usually have the big excitement. And definitely this weekend, we're seeing that excitement with Talladega. It's the playoffs. We're back. It's 6 races to this championship, and we're going to have a smaller capacity crowd at Talladega. This is a very welcome sense of normalcy compared to the last time we were here at Talladega. Last time was about a week and days after the Confederate flag was banned that we arrived at Talladega. The atmosphere without the fans was very eerie. Outside, there was some protesters with Confederate flags, and we even had a plane flying the Confederate flag above the speedway on the morning of the race. And then, of course, on Sunday, that's when the news was discovered in the garage stall Bubba Wallace was assigned to. The entire weekend was marred, and security was a big concern for everyone's safety. Kobe, now that we're coming back to Talladega, seems like a lot more different atmosphere. How good is it to come back now that we have a storyline of the playoffs? It does feel a lot more closer to normalcy being back at Talladega, especially now.
Well, it certainly hasn't been a normal year, obviously, Joe, for obvious reasons. But it certainly feels like a more normal weekend at Talladega because we don't have all of the drama of the nuisance and then the Sons of the Confederacy as well, and everything else that came out of that first Talladega weekend. So it feels nice that that there's going to be some fans back at the racetrack. We got the playoff storylines heading into the weekend, and it just overall feels normal. It's gonna be really crazy to see what's gonna happen during tomorrow's race. I think it's gonna be really intense, and we might see some surprises along the way.
Definitely going to be one of the traditional Talladega playoff races. I know by the end of Sunday we're going to be talking about the big moments, potentially the big one. Which drivers from the playoffs were caught up in it, which one avoided it and delivered big time to improve their chances or even take a surprise win. We saw Kurt Busch get the surprise win last week. Talladega is always full of storylines before and after the race, so I think it's going to be a very exciting race. Of course, definitely, I think the last time we were here at Talladega, considering everything, that's a race that's very significant for NASCAR that a lot of people won't forget. I know I probably will never forget that weekend, but the one big thing I think is the big positive we could all remember from the last time we were here at Talladega. It was a really hard week for the sport, but the 2 images that many fans and I will never forget, how NASCAR rallied behind Bubba Wallace and the King, Richard Petty, hugging Bubba Wallace. It was a highlight not only for NASCAR, but I believe for the United States during a tumultuous 2020. Today, the NASCAR playoffs, drivers are looking to make it a big statement here and a highlight for their season, taking a look at the NASCAR playoff stands right now. As you can see, Kurt Busch does have the win. He is advancing to the round of 8. And then look at the rest of the field. Also close, especially once we get to Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski only 16 points above the cut line entering Talladega. We saw Kurt Busch last weekend. He got the win. It was a very emotional win for him at his hometown and advanced to the round of 8 in the playoffs. For anyone, especially in the bottom 4, How big of a win will the Talladega race be in the playoffs? I know Austin Dillon has a Daytona 500 win, but how big would this win mean for their career?
Oh yeah, definitely. Winning at Talladega is certainly special because a lot of we've seen a lot of great moments at Talladega and first time winners. And for Kurt Busch last weekend, you saw it was really emotional winning at his home track for the very first time after trying hard for so many years to win at Las Vegas. And it really seems like that Kurt Busch, is coming towards the end of his career. I know he has a contract to race for Chip Ganassi racing next year, but but looking ahead in the future, we don't know if Kurt Busch is going to continue. I know he said he was disappointed that they moved the next gen car back to 2022 because he was looking forward to trying out the new generation car, and it's gonna be interesting to see if the intrigue of the next gen car is that going to keep Kurt Busch around heading into 2022. But certainly this weekend, if for some of the drivers in the field, especially if they're at the crossroads in their career, they're gonna be looking for a ride. Don't know what's coming up next. Winning this weekend would certainly be really special and important for their career.
It'll be big for their career, especially the playoffs. This could be the best opportunity to get into the round of eight, especially for those bottom four drivers. I know Kyle Busch, a lot of people are putting a lot of hopes in him advancing to the next round, and he's not having a career year. That could say volume if he could pull off a win today. Now, of course, Talladega is known not only for just the big one, but also the increased likelihood of a first time winner. Now, all the drivers in the playoff have at least one win in their career. 18 drivers in today's field have no Cup Series wins. That includes some of these notables. Matt DiBenedetto starting 13th, Christopher Bell 22nd, John Hunter Nemechek 23rd, Michael McDowell 24th, Ryan Priest 25th, Bubba Wallace starting 27th, Ty Dillon 28th, and Tyler Reddick starting 30th. Out of all those drivers that I've named, or some of the other drivers I haven't named that don't have a win yet, what are the likelihoods of them winning, and who's most likely to win out of them?
Well, looking at that group of drivers, I think the driver that could really have one of the best shots of winning is Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick, you remember? I think yeah, it was Daytona heading into the final laps of the Coke Zero Sugar 400. Tyler Reddick was running up front, battling for the win, trying to secure a spot in the playoffs. And however, he made what many considered a rookie mistake threw a bad block and ended up causing the big one. Yeah, that was an unfortunate mistake by Reddick there, being really aggressive. But with this current super speedway package, you have to be aggressive, bold, and be willing to make all of those moves. And we're just gonna have to see if Tyler Reddick's in the same position again in the closing laps of the race. Did he learn from what happened at Daytona?
Tyler Reddick is easily one driver that could go out there and win today. Looks looking really good at the end of the Daytona race and the regular season finale. Another driver, Bubba Wallace, of course, he had a really good run at Daytona last time. Talladega had a really good run. He's somebody that could do it. And of course, Matt Benedetto. He has Penske equipment with the Wood brothers. He's trying to prove a point that he deserves to be in that ride. I know Matt Benedetto, we're still waiting some announcement from the Wood brothers about his future, but definitely he seems to have the momentum after last week's second place finish. Now he's coming here at Talladega. Great opportunity to him and the Penske drivers to move to the front. Now this week we did have some interesting news. Rick Hendrick and Richard Childress Races are joining forces for their engine programs. We all know the ECR engine program. Now Hendrick's going to be part of this engine program. When it comes to Talladega, Rick Hendrick has 13 wins there. Richard Childress Racing, 12 wins there. What would this partnership look like with the two of them in the same engine program?
Well, Joe, I think that this is a great thing for the ECR engine program and the Hendrick engine program because it seems like the Chevrolet has been a little behind in comparison to the other manufacturers, and instead of doing their own separate engine program, I think with Chevrolet as a whole completely working together, they can catch up to Ford and Toyota.
Catching up to Ford and Toyota will definitely be a big goal, and it's definitely something where it seems with Ford, we all know there's the Roush Yates engine program. To have a Hendrick RCR engine program will really strengthen the Chevrolet teams as they all try to compete against the Fords and Toyotas. Now we'll definitely have more coverage of NASCAR ahead of the program. We'll now turn into the shocking news we heard from Formula One just yesterday.
Yeah, it was real shocking news. I was actually up late, Friday around 3 a.m. Eastern time when it was announced. But Honda announced that it would be leaving Formula One at the end of the 2021 season. And Honda, of course, supplies Red Bull and AlphaTauri with engines, and both have won this season. Now both are, Red Bull and AlphaTauri, they don't have an engine supplier lined up yet for 2022. Joe, did this come as a big surprise for you?
Easily a big surprise. Earlier in the year when we were discussing, and I know a lot of people were discussing about the manufacturer engine supplier leaving, a lot of people thought that was going to be Renault because Renault had no customer teams lined up after this year. In the past, Renault has come and gone, as well as other manufacturers. I did not anticipate Honda to make this news, especially this year. The Honda teams, they are looking better. And one of the things we do know, Red Bull got to win, and then we have AlphaTauri, they also have a win too. So one of the big things I was just really shocked to see was considering the success this year so far, we know Mercedes is dominant. For a Honda to leave, it just really caught me big time by surprise.
Yeah, it definitely caught me by surprise too. And now Honda's left F1 before twice, came back, and now they're leaving again. And this time the company's goal is to be carbon neutral in the future. And in a statement, Honda said that racing is still in their DNA. Does this mean that Honda could move over to Formula E, or should IndyCar be nervous?
Definitely when it comes to a future in Formula E, I put that as very likely. With their announcement that they want to be essentially carbon neutral, right now they're going to take those resources from Formula One, work towards that goal. But the other thing, of course, with Formula E, we saw Mahindra this week. They got carbon neutral certification. It's a much easier road to get to that goal and could really help the development. And it will be really interesting to see Honda enter Formula E. Right now, when you look at Formula E, yes, they have a lot of manufacturers, but you don't see any of the manufacturers that are in NASCAR or IndyCar. Honda will be the first one to say, we have an IndyCar program and a Formula E program. As for their commitment here in IndyCar, I know IndyCar is looking at the hybrid engines in the future. I don't know if that'll keep Honda around, but definitely seems they have a really good relations for a long time. I know we just prior to this weekend had the Honda 200 at Mid Ohio. It's gonna be really interesting to see it. I got an idea. Definitely IndyCar is working with Honda, ensuring they stick around for the meantime.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's really crazy that this has happened with Honda deciding to leave Formula One again. And for Formula One, we have three engine suppliers for 2022. Ferrari, with obviously Scuderia Ferrari, then we have Alfa Romeo and Haas, and then Mercedes, obviously Mercedes. Then they're also going to be supplying McLaren next year, and then the Aston Martin team. And then Renault has zero customers lined up. And Joe, this is really funny. Renault doesn't have any customers, and it seemed like the partnership between Red Bull and Renault didn't really end on most peaceful terms. Do you think considering everything that happened with Red Bull and Renault after their relationship, ended, it was kind of awkward. Do you think that Red Bull is going to be forced to try to repair their relationship and go back to Renault? And is it healthy for Formula One to only have three engine suppliers, or do you think someone else is going to come on board down the road?
There's a likelihood somebody could come in as well, making a fourth engine supplier. But right now, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen right away. We still, are with the current three. It's just really interesting how it works out where if Renault is going to be the engine supplier for Red Bull and AlphaTauri, that the three manufacturers essentially have three teams on the grid. Is it exactly healthy for Formula One? Well, it depends. I mean, if the teams 2022, we're going to have the new regulations, we're going to have a new financial structure. We could easily see the teams get more healthy. It's definitely different from the past where we had Ferrari, Mercedes, BMW, and various other manufacturers in there. So it's going to be a little bit different, but definitely I think when it comes to the potential of Renault being around and having a relationship with Red Bull, a lot of times when it comes for sports partnership, sometimes I always say anything's possible, and we all know Murray Walker's old saying anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.
Yeah, certainly anything can happen. And I feel like if we want to see more engine suppliers come down the road, that there might have to be some rule changes in Formula One. You know, Honda's pulling out because they're looking towards the future. They understand that motorsport in its current state is not going to survive, you know, long term. And Honda's just, you know, getting one step ahead, trying to do, you know, basically what Formula E has done. Formula E is set up for the future, and when Formula E first came on board, people were like, "Wow, this series is so futuristic." And I feel like that what Formula E is right now, that's just gonna become the norm in motorsports. You know, many years down the road, and I feel like Honda has realized that the landscape of motor racing is changing, and they'd rather, you know, get years ahead and prepare for it now instead of being caught off guard, because long term with the way that Formula One is now, I don't know how that's gonna work out. I just feel like that if we want to have more manufacturers join the sport, that there's just gonna have to be some tough decisions and rule changes that are gonna have to start, you know, looking towards the future.
Yeah, a lot of tough decisions ahead, and it's going to be a really interesting change in motorsports, especially as we see more and more manufacturers wanting to go into electric vehicle racing. What's going to happen to some of the sports that we haven't heard much about? Now, of course, we did hear from Bob Pockris the potential of maybe some electrification in NASCAR engines in the future, but that won't be immediate. That'll be something they're talking about 2022, 2023. Speaking of NASCAR, of course, the NASCAR playoffs at Talladega tomorrow. Since the creation of the Chase, which is now the playoff, Talladega has always been a race during this time period. For a few years, it was a cutoff race for the elimination format. That changed after a controversial finish in which there was a crash coming to a restart, bringing a yellow flag and then ending the race. Now, the Talladega race is in the middle of the second round of playoffs between Las Vegas and the Charlotte Roval. Considering the unpredictability of Talladega, it's a very unpredictable race. This round has already shown to be very unpredictable with the Roval, and then, of course, last week's surprise win of Kurt Busch. Should Dega be in another round to balance that unpredictability level in each round?
No, not at all. I think Talladega is in the perfect spot on the schedule. You know, I've said this many times before, but NASCAR has done a solid job with the playoff structure and the way the races are. Yeah. You know, the Talladega and the Charlotte Roval are in the same round, which is really crazy because both of those races are very unpredictable. And I think that this certainly adds to the entertainment value because, you know, got the Roval has had some crazy things happen there, and then Talladega's always been Talladega. So I think the unpredictability certainly keeps things really interesting.
It keeps everything interesting, and that's the thing. I feel if Talladega was in the first round, you still have the entire full playoff grid of 16. Maybe a little bit too unpredictable if somebody that was 15, 16 seed was to go get a win. If it was in the round of 8, the next round, essentially you're saying Talladega would decide who goes to a championship round of 4. I think a lot of people would agree that's a bit too unpredictable as well. So this definitely seemed like the perfect spot for the Dega race in the playoffs, middle of round 2. Yes, we still have an unpredictable race in the future, but that just makes it where it really sets up the round to be known as the most difficult round, where we're going to go from 12 down to 8. Now, the current round, so many drivers are really close to that cut line. That includes Kyle Busch, still winless. When it comes to Dega, 7 out of the 12 drivers here have won at Dega. But of course, really, anybody can win here. However, interesting to note, Kevin Harvick, his last win here at Talladega was 2010. Where does he stack up with the other playoff drivers when it comes to favorites to win today?
Yeah, I certainly think that Kevin Harvick could be one of the favorites to win at Talladega, and really for Harvick, even if he doesn't really have the best type of race, we all know this race is super unpredictable. I don't really think unless unless he goes out really early in a wreck. I really think Kevin Harvick's gonna be all right no matter. It doesn't matter if you finish first, second, outside the top 5, outside the top 10, maybe a top 20 finish. I think Kevin Harvick's going to be fun because this race is just so unpredictable and anything can really happen. And otherwise, looking at the tracks that are less unpredictable like this, where things are, more in your hands than those other tracks, I think Kevin Harvick is still the favorite to win the championship this year.
He definitely seems like the favorite to win the championship this year still, and definitely Talladega. Even though we always hear the saying anybody could win here, for Kevin Harvick to not win here since 2010 really caught me by surprise. I do think he is still a contender to win. There's no way he's not going to be a contender unless, of course, he gets caught up in the big one or something mechanically fails on the car, which is very rare. Now, 2 of his teammates have won here. Clint Bowyer in 2011, Aric Almirola in 2018. The 2 drivers that haven't won here, of course, Martin Truex Jr. and Bowman. They have never won here. Both of them are currently above the cut line. If you're one of those 2 drivers, do you approach this race differently in the offensive and a defensive manner because you're ahead of the cut line by a good amount, but you've never won here, and you got to be fearful of essentially that big one grabbing you?
I honestly think that it just depends on how the race plays out. I think the best place where you can possibly be is at the front of the pack leading or at the back of the pack riding around just behind the lead pack, but still in the line drafting. So you still have drafting help. Yeah, and I feel like, but if you're in the middle, that's just not gonna work. You either have to choose the front or the back. And yet things can happen anywhere. But I feel like that the safest place could be to run back at the back of the pack. So if something happens, we'll have time to check up, or at the front where everything will happen behind you. Yeah, so I just think the best strategy for these playoff drivers, especially if you're above the cut line, just go out there and race. And if you don't really have a lot of points to give, so if you're like say 5 points ahead, you might want to be a little cautious, but you don't want to be too cautious because those stage points can make a huge difference.
Can make a huge difference, those stage points. We've seen them before. Essentially, you almost dictate who advanced to the next round and who didn't advance to the next round. Now, I mentioned 2 drivers that hadn't won here. The 3rd driver that hadn't won here at Talladega, Kurt Busch. Never won here, but guess what? He's locked in the next round with that win last week. So he can still go out there, try to get a win, get those stage points. That'll help him out in the next round, but he doesn't have to worry about not advancing into the round of 8. 2018, we saw Stewart-Haas Racing. All 4 of them work together. They control that race, led just about every lap. This year, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, both of them are in the top 6 when it comes to the playoff ranking right now. Of course, Brian Blaney, he is out of the playoffs. Matt Benedetto are out of the playoffs. Wood Brothers have a technical alliance with Penske Racing. Could we see Penske team or any other team try to control the race like how Stewart-Haas Racing controlled it back in 2018?
Oh, in 2018, that race was really crazy because nobody had anything for Stewart-Haas Racing that day. It really reminded me of the early 2000s plate race dominance of DEI, and that was just the one year Stewart-Haas Racing really hit it off right with the setup. And this fall race at Talladega in recent years seemed like that's been a race that's been really good for Team Penske. So it would not surprise me if we see Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, and their affiliate with the Wood brother Matt Benedetto, if we saw them work together and try to control this race. Yeah, and it seems like we might see another Penske driver in victory lane today because this fall race has been a really good event for them.
It has been a really good event for them overall, and it wouldn't surprise me. I know recall how in the past we've seen Logano, Brad Keselowski work together, do the same thing, try to control a race. Brad Keselowski really good at Talladega, as well as Logano. Both of them have multiple wins there. So easily we could try to see that occur tomorrow. We'll definitely have a little bit more NASCAR coverage ahead. We'll definitely start talking about some IndyCar racing with the Harvest Grand Prix.
Yeah, and before we go any forward, the Harvest Grand Prix, I have some breaking news that's just come out from IndyCar. And in a statement, IndyCar says that the series has reached a new multi-year extension with engine partners Honda and Chevrolet taking their partnership well into the end of the 2020s decade and providing stability and innovation for the NTT IndyCar series. And IndyCar President Jay Fry said to be able to announce a long-term multi-year extension with our two great partners is phenomenal. It's an exciting time in IndyCar with all of the innovations in the car, the new 2.4-liter engine and hybrid technology. And in the statement, IndyCar says that due to the global COVID-19 pandemic, the introduction of the 2.4-liter twin turbocharged V6 engine with hybrid technology will be delayed to the year of 2023. And working in partnership with Chevrolet and Honda, the new engine will give the most exciting and competitive racing series in the world an additional 100 horsepower, ultimately producing over 900 horsepower. Whoa! So those cars are really going to be going fast. The all time speed record, the Indianapolis 500 for pole day might fall well into the 2020s. And then Ted Clouse, president of Honda Performance Development (HPD), said that Honda welcomes this step to the future by IndyCar, action that mirrors Honda's efforts to develop and manufacture high performance electrified products that will meet industry challenges and delight our customers. At Honda, we race to develop our people, to innovate technologies, and to engage fans. We're proud of our uninterrupted 27-year leadership in IndyCar and look forward to delivering a next generation Honda 2.4-liter hybrid power unit with more than 900 horsepower. And then Mark Rose, president of GM Chevrolet, said that Chevrolet has enjoyed great success since joining IndyCar in 2012 with our 2.2-liter twin turbocharged direct injected V6 engine. We are thrilled to be moving forward with IndyCar because it's the perfect showcase for our engine technology and in only open wheel racing in America, a high tech growing series that Roger Penske and his team are absolutely taking it to the next level. And then to end the statement, IndyCar says the newly designed powertrain system also will provide a departure from the traditional manual handheld starters and will let drivers restart the car quickly should it stall on track. So when that happens in the future, Joe, it really looks like that we won't have to go to a full course yellow because the drivers will be able to, restart the cars a lot easier rather than needing to get the marshals to come out there push start them. And this will, yeah, and IndyCar also adds that this will benefit the AMR IndyCar safety team as it reduces exposure time on the track and adds to the fan experience by potentially reducing the number of caution flags, leading to a better flow of the race. And all of this news, it was really crazy because just a little while ago we were talking about if we should be worried about Honda pulling out of IndyCar, but with this breaking news is dropping, Honda has definitely reconfirmed their commitment to IndyCar, and they're going to be here until the year 2030. So, Joe, what's your initial reaction to this news?
Just about the best timing. We were just talking about like maybe 5 or 8 minutes ago about Honda and the future with IndyCar. We were saying, we knew IndyCar was looking at a hybrid engine. Well, they just said 2023, that's when we're going to have the hybrid. Will they be working with Honda to ensure them a long-term future? The answer, our questions today pretty much is yes, they have been working, and to see and hear about this big deal to the end of the decade, that's going to provide a lot of long-term stability. And just really interesting because I know we'll talk a little bit later about the growth of IndyCar. It seems like really this is going to lay down a good foundation for anybody wanting to enter in auto racing, whether it's NASCAR or IndyCar, that, hey, IndyCar, we got 2 engine suppliers, and they're here for a long time to come.
Yeah, it's really exciting news for IndyCar. Yeah, we knew Chevrolet was going to stick around, and we're wondering if what happened with the Formula One operation was going to affect the IndyCar operation, but apparently not. Honda's here to stay, and we're going to have 900 horsepower with hybrid technology. So it would not shock me if by the end of the current decade, if we see Ari Leyendijk's record at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is going to fall, might see speeds well above 236 miles per hour, and it's going to be great to see the big speed in IndyCar over over the next several years. And now looking back at what's going on this weekend at the Harvest Grand Prix. Yesterday was race one on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, and the race was very exciting. Great battle at the start with Renus VK and Colton Herta, two youngsters. They stole the show at the beginning and at the end of the race. Do you think with these two young drivers, could we be witnessing the start of a great rivalry between VK and Herta?
Easily, this looks like it's becoming a great rivalry between the two of them. That was a lot of fun watching those two. Now we know Gateway, they had a little bit of a game together, a little bit of a disagreement. And then, of course, Iowa, there's a misfortunate incident occurring during that restart. What's really exciting about these two, especially the way they're racing each other pretty clean. Aggressive, yes, but they're both 20 years old, and that makes it even more exciting. Sometimes we've seen rivalries where it's the old school versus a new school. One of the big rivalries in the late 90s, Jeff Gordon versus Dale Earnhardt Sr. This is now a rivalry where both of them are entering. Both of them are in their prime. And both of them have a lot of potential in IndyCar. So this rivalry between Rinus VeeKay and Colton Herta, both of them have really good cars. I'm excited about next season. I think they're going to put on a great battle between the two of them.
Yeah, certainly a lot of great potential there for a wonderful rivalry that the fans will enjoy watching for years to come. Yeah, VK started on the pole and battled Herta hard for the lead in the beginning stages, but Joseph Newgarden was hard to beat and took the lead and led most of the laps. And he closed the gap to Scott Dixon for the championship down to 40 points. However, Colton Herta has been mathematically eliminated from the championship. Yeah, yeah. We had qualifying earlier today. Will Power started on the pole for race two. We only have two races left, and the max points available is 54 per race. Does Joseph Newgarden have the momentum to win this championship? Because it really seems like that Scott Dixon is really going into a slump at the wrong time of the season.
It really does appear it's going to slump in the wrong time of the year. He looks so unbeatable. It's just really amazing. And now Joseph Newgarden, he definitely has some momentum coming out of Gateway, then Mid Ohio, kept it clean up front, and then here we are. He just won yesterday, which is really exciting for him, of course. So definitely big, a lot of big things happening for Joseph Newgarden to try to put a championship effort together.
Yeah, and earlier in the season, Scott Dixon was looking unbeatable. Dixon had a huge lead. He was, on top of the world in every aspect, especially with our grid ranking here. And after the Indy 500, it seems like Scott Dixon has really fallen off his game. Do you think everyone has caught up to Scott Dixon, and did he peak way too soon?
It seems like everyone seems to have caught up to them. They were really hard to beat. Now, of course, we had a very unique start of the season where limited practice, qualifying race. Now it seems the teams have adjusted and they've closed the gap. Because not only are we not seeing Scott Dixon up towards the front, Felix Rosenqvist, he's not exactly up towards the front. Marcus Ericsson, the Chip Ganassi Racing drivers yesterday, they weren't exactly up there contending for the win. With that said, we've also seen Scott Dixon do some uncharacteristic mistakes. Mid Ohio spun out. He called it a rookie error. At the same time, the way that everything's going, we know in Gateway, he didn't have that great of a qualifying session. And then especially Mid Ohio, another not so great qualifying session. Easily, it does appear that they don't have the momentum on the side, but I do think in a way everyone has caught up to Scott Dixon. Traditionally, the IndyCar series very competitive. See a bunch of different winners. Now here we are. Scott Dixon 4 wins, Newgarden 3 wins. It seems everyone's starting to really catch up to them.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we have 2 races left. Harvest Grand Prix race 2 this afternoon, and then the Firestone Grand Prix on the streets of St. Pete in Florida. And yesterday we only had only had one DNF, Andretti on lap 79 out of 85, and today we're gonna have a slightly shorter race. What does Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden have to do today?
Well, for Joseph Newgarden, keep doing what you're doing. You looked flawless yesterday with the lead. You led the most laps. If you can't get the win, stay up front, stay ahead of Scott Dixon. You're 40 points. So as long as you close the gap more, that just makes the next race, the last race, easier for you to try to beat Scott Dixon. For Scott Dixon, got to be flawless. You got to go out there, try to get ahead of Joseph Newgarden or be within a position of him. Because if you could keep that gap over 30 points, over 35 points especially, that's going to make it really difficult for Joseph Newgarden to pass you. But if Joseph Newgarden could get to within 35 and especially 30 points of Scott Dixon entering St. Pete, it is going to be a really intense battle. So that's what they're both looking at. Joseph Newgarden, keep doing what you're doing, have a good, clean race, stay up front. Scott Dixon, you got to put together a really good race right now and stay within or ahead of Joseph Newgarden.
Yeah. And one of the storylines that broke yesterday was, Meyer Shank Race and their driver Jack Harvey came home 8th, and it was announced that Liberty Media is going to be a minority investor in Meyer Shank Race, and they're looking to expand their presence in IndyCar, and also some other great news from Meyer Shank Race, and they broke ground on their new facility that are much larger facility than their current shop, as they're preparing to expand their IndyCar program in the future, and then also they're going to be having an accurate DPI program as well. So a lot of great things happening for Meyer Shank Racing in IndyCar and IMSA. And we're seeing what looks like a renewed interest in IndyCar. And however, a lot of people have said that the new schedule that announced next year, really, really disappointing. What does IndyCar do moving forward?
When it comes to IndyCar, their new schedule, it's a bit disappointing to see that we only have 3 ovals. They're going to comprise of the 4 oval races, with Texas being a doubleheader. Still, overall, it's a good season. 17 races. We got a good number of street courses, permanent road courses, and of course the 4 ovals. With that said, especially with today's news that Chevrolet and Honda, they're going to be with IndyCar to the end of the decade. We're going to see 900 horsepower and a new transmission where we could see drivers be able to restart a vehicle on their own. There's still a lot of forward momentum. I do understand IndyCar released their season schedule the day after NASCAR 2021 schedule. So, of course, that's a hard act to follow with what happened Wednesday with the NASCAR schedule coming out. But overall, it's a good season, good schedule, and hopefully we could see, especially now that we got engine suppliers that are both committed to IndyCar for the long haul. We got teams expanding. This news from Meyer Shank Racing expanded. That's really exciting. We know McLaren wants to expand. Ray Hall Letterman wants to expand. We could have a pretty large IndyCar field. And of course, a large IndyCar field will be good for them in the grid ranking as well. And of course, just really great for the sport overall. And I think it could really allow IndyCar to expand and then hopefully see more ovals in the future.
Yeah, and looking at some of the changes that happened with the schedule, Circuit of the Americas gone. NASCAR Cup Series is going to be going to Circuit of the Americas, and then Iowa Speedway's gone from the schedule as well. People are really worried about the future of Iowa because we haven't heard anything. And then the Indianapolis Road Course is going to have 2 days, a traditional weekend in the month of May before the Indy 500, and then we're going to have a doubleheader with IndyCar and the NASCAR Cup Series later on in the season, and then Portland International Raceway not going to be on Labor Day weekend anymore. Going to be put. I think they're pushing that back by a week or so, and then they're going to have a doubleheader weekend at Texas to kick off the month of May. So we're going to have an oval before the Indianapolis 500. Overall, Joe, what do you think of the schedule and only 3 oval tracks making 4 races? Do you think that ovals might soon become a thing of the past in IndyCar, and the only oval race in the future might be the Indianapolis 500, and the rest are going to be road and street courses?
Hopefully that's not the case. A lot of folks probably remember how Champ Car started focusing more on street permanent road courses. They're great when it comes to attendance, but when it comes to television race, the ovals always seem to be a race where it stands out, and it's something to get excited about. I know, in the past when it was CART, the Michigan 500, the California 500, those are big events. Of course, now we know Auto Club's going to go away, but definitely I do see potential for IndyCar, especially with the new engine deal, expanded teams. You're going to need bigger facilities as well too. If you have 25 cars out there, easily Michigan that could hold 25 cars. An oval race with the space, they could do that. So I definitely think we're going to see a reintroduction of ovals. It may not happen, of course, 2021, maybe 2022, but I think especially 2023 and beyond, we can start to see some more ovals.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's gonna take a while before. Hopefully not too long, but I really think that we're gonna have to try to get some more ovals on the track on the schedule to make it more balanced in Kentucky Speedway. Since NASCAR dropped them from the schedule, maybe that could be a destination for IndyCar to go. Yeah, so they can add another oval, and hopefully IndyCar will be able to revisit talks with Richmond Raceway. Unfortunate that IndyCar is supposed to return there, but they won't be on the schedule next year. So maybe that could be another oval in the future. NASCAR going back to Nashville Super Speedway. Maybe I don't know if IndyCar would try to race Nashville twice on the street circuit and then the Super Speedway. But certainly there's some options out there for oval tracks, and I think with the increased protection of the with the aero screen, I think that Michigan could be a good track for IndyCar. The speeds would be really huge there, and especially 900 horsepower. I think that if IndyCar were to return to Michigan in the future, well into the 2020s, that it would give people a great reminders of the old days of IndyCar.
Definitely be a great reminder of what used to be the Michigan 500. And of course, now that Michigan's going to have one NASCAR Cup Series date, might be more enticing for the folks at Michigan International Speedway to approach IndyCar about something in the future. Of course, IndyCar, they are part of the grid ranking. Only IndyCar and NASCAR running this weekend are part of the grid ranking. And with a poor finish yesterday of ninth place for Scott Dixon is mathematically eliminated from any chance at the grid ranking world championship. Right now, he is projected with a score of 14 points, 1434 overall. The battle is really between Scott McLaughlin, Kevin Harvick, Lewis Hamilton, and Denny Hamlin. Antonio Felix da Costa cannot surpass McLaughlin, no matter where McLaughlin finished at the Bathurst 1000. Of course, with the grid ranking poor finishes, you'll see the point total drop. But with the Formula E being done, he cannot be able to surpass Scott McLaughlin, especially since Scott McLaughlin has one race left at the Bathurst 1000. NASCAR has 6 races left. Formula One has 7 races left for the season. MotoGP and World Rally Championship both mathematically eliminated from contention for the grid ranking world championship.
Yeah. So it's a lot going on right there with the grid ranking, and please stay up to date with the grid ranking because we're gonna see another update at the end of this racing weekend as IndyCar and NASCAR concludes. And next thing, end our program with some NASCAR talk. Joe, they always say that Talladega Super Speedway is like no other track on earth. And next season we're gonna have 2 races at Talladega like normal, and with all of the renovations that the track has made, it's gonna be a brand new experience for the fans, especially when we get back to normal times and they're gonna be able to do all of those things. Do you think like NASCAR's been trying a lot of new things? Looking at the schedule next year, we're gonna have a Bristol dirt race, going to more road courses, and then after the race at Auto Club Speedway in the early spring or late winter, whatever you want to call it, there's going to they're gonna tear down Auto Club Speedway, and they're gonna turn the super speedway and turn it into a short track. Real bold move for NASCAR there. And it seems like NASCAR is gonna be taking a lot of risks moving forward. Might even see a street race. But looking at the Talladega, especially the Winston 500 back in the day, that race was viewed as a crown jewel event. Do you think in the future NASCAR could NASCAR could make some like special incentives like they did years ago, like with the Winston 500. Could Talladega be seen as a the fall race at Talladega, could it be viewed as a crown jewel event, especially if they were to bring back an incentive like the Winston Million, or even a future site for either the All Star race or the championship round, which might seem a little unpredictable?
Talladega easily stands out when it comes to the NASCAR circuits. Of course, Daytona 500 is a big one, Southern 500 at Darlington. But Talladega has always delivered good crowds, always delivered exciting races, and always have left people talking before and after the race. Should it be a crown jewel event? I easily see Talladega being considered a crown jewel event. The old Winston 500 was part of the Winston Million. Talladega, of course, the history it has with the sports, and now with the fan experience that they have in the pit road area, garage area, it just really brings Talladega to a whole new level. Talladega is easily going to have two races. I think that spring race should easily be part of any, whether it's $1 million plan or a triple crown, well, NASCAR 4 crown, something like that. But it should definitely be ranking up there with the big races, the spring race at Talladega. And one of the big things, of course, it does have potential. It could be a really exciting all-star race. If we're going to discuss about the all-star race moving around, rotating to different tracks, Talladega will be one where that all-star race is just going to be crazy. But of course, the all-star race usually is crazy, experimental. Talladega will be just nuts. I think Talladega will be too unpredictable for the championship deciding round for the NASCAR Cup Series. Last thing we would want is somebody from the top 4 to be taken out because of the big one, and they were really not our fault. And of course, the big thing with Talladega, the schedule when it comes to Alabama, I don't know how the weather is during that fall time, but of course that's a big thing as well, is how the weather works. But definitely Talladega is a race where when it comes to stature, I see it up there with the Southern 500, Daytona 500 as well.
And with Talladega, actually, right now, from my perspective, I don't really see. I wouldn't really call Talladega one of the crown jewels of the sport. I believe that it needs an extra pizzazz, like I was referring to back in the day with the Winston Million, the $1 million bonus. I feel like if NASCAR decided to take this race and bring back some type of bonus, I don't know if they'd be able to do $1 million bonus, because then that would take away from winning the All Star race. But I feel like people have all been wondering if the All Star race is going to stick around long term, and I feel like if the All Star race were to disappear, you could move that $1 million to this Talladega race, so it would be like so you could get a $1 million bonus, and I think that would really solidify its status as a crown jewel event, and if the All Star race does rotate around in the future years, I think it would be really smart if Talladega invested in having lights. I know I've told a lot of people this, that it's really weird how we have a movie called Talladega Nights, but the track doesn't have any lights. And when NASCAR make all these changes in the future, it would not surprise me at some point if they did decide to install lights at the Talladega Super Speedway. And I do agree with you 100% when you say it's unpredictable for it to be the championship round, or even if it's the final race before the championship four. That just seems way too unpredictable to crown a champion or Talladega to be the deciding race to figure out who's going to be fighting for the championship. And and we actually have 2 races today. We have a Talladega doubleheader Saturday. We have the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series and the NASCAR Xfinity Series later in the afternoon. But first, we have the NASCAR Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series at Talladega. Race coverage is going to start at 1 p.m. Eastern Time at FS1. And looking at the starting lineup for today's Chevrolet Silverado 250 at Talladega, we have Sheldon Creed on the pole, followed by Austin Hill, Zane Smith, Grant Enfinger, and Chandler Smith round out the top 5. Then we have Kristen Eckes, Matt Crafton, Brett Moffitt, Tyler Ankrum, and Todd Gilliland rounding out your top 10. And it's going to be really intense out there today for the Truck Series because this is the final race, the opening round of the Truck Series playoffs. And Austin Hill winning last time out in Las Vegas. He's the only driver who's locked in to the next round. Then we have Sheldon Creed has at a healthy 52-point cushion. Brett Moffitt third in the championship, 44 points ahead. Then then we have Zane Smith who's 39 points ahead. Grant Enfinger 31. Tyler Ankrum 15, and also Matt Crafton's 15 points above the cut line, and then Christian Eckes only has a 6-point advantage, and then the two drivers who are below the line, we have Ben Rhodes 6 points below, and then Todd Gilliland 19 points below. So Joe, it's going to be very important for those Truck Series drivers to try to get those stage points and stay out of trouble, and for drivers, I believe. Tyler Ankrum and Down. Are they going to be really nervous today because Ankrum Crafton only have a 15-point cushion, and then Eki 6, and then Rhodes 6 points out, and Gilliland 19 points out. What do you think is going to be going through their mind today during the Truck Series race?
It's going to be just nuts, especially for the Truck Series. I know when it comes to the Cup Series and the playoffs here, these drivers, of course, they are really progressed to be in the Cup level. In the Truck Series, you're still coming up. So there's a lot more pressure, I feel, because it's literally, if I could go advance, get that win, this could really help me get to Xfinity or get to the Cup Series. It could really help our team get sponsorship and keep improving. So it's really interesting that for the drivers, I think they're going to be under a little bit more pressure because they got all these concerns going through. They don't exactly have the experience as a Cup Series driver in this position, and it's going to make it for, I think, some fascinating racing today.
Yeah, definitely. And we also have the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NBCSN. And as we take a look at that starting lineup, we have Chase Briscoe starting on the pole, and alongside him is Noah Gragson. And then we have Austin Cindric, Justin Allgaier, and Daniel Hemrick completing the top 5. And then 6 through 10, we have Anthony Alfredo, Ryan Sieg, Justin Haley, Michael Annett, and Brandon Jones. And Justin Haley in 8th Colic Racing car, and then we have Ross Chastain starting 13th, another Colic Racing car, and then their teammate AJ Allmendinger is going to be in a 3rd Colic car, starting deep down in the field in 36th place. And the last time we were on a restrictor plate track in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, AJ Allmendinger looked like he was going to win at Daytona, and Ross Chastain was right behind, and Ross Chastain tried to make a bold move, trying to win the race, and ended up wrecking himself and his teammate AJ Allmendinger. And it really seems like that Colic Racing has become one of the teams to beat on the restrictor plate tracks in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, considering what happened between Ross Chastain and AJ Allmendinger at Daytona the last plate race. What do you think is going to be their mindset heading into the race at Talladega today?
Their mindset, they're not going to be thinking about that. I know when it comes to especially restrictor plate racing, everything could be so much different. And Talladega, you got a lot more room to drive around. In the past, we've seen Talladega, sometimes that really high line can be very powerful, hard to beat. I don't know if that'll happen, especially in Xfinities. You're not allowed to be tandem, no bump drafting. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I think for the two of them, they're not going to remember, or at least they'll remember it, but they're not going to be thinking about what happened at Daytona on that last lap and just be more focused on what's going on around them.
Yeah, in today's days and age, you can't let stuff like that get to you, or otherwise you've already lost the race. I think Colic Racing is gonna have to put that behind them, and they were actually really lucky to win that race at Daytona. They still, although two of their cars crashed, Justin Haley still come through and won the race, and Justin Haley could be one of the favorites to win today because he has 2 restrictor plate wins this year. One at Daytona last Daytona in August. The race happened in August, and then he won it. He also won the first race at Talladega back in the early summer. So I certainly think that Colic Racing could be the team to beat, and one of those drivers to watch today certainly going to be Justin Haley, and I'm sure team's going to work really really well together to put that little incident between Chastain and Allgaier behind, because Colic Racing is here to win, and their restrictor plate program has really improved a lot over the years. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Pick a Winner. Yeah, we only have two Pick a Winner today since we don't have a lot of racing going on this weekend. We're going to start off with race 2 for the Harvest Grand Prix. I'm going to start off with Joe.
Harvest Grand Prix, man, I'm thinking probably it's going to be Will Power. He's starting on the pole. Penske's are really hard to beat at Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, and definitely want to encourage all our viewers, put in the comment chat room who you think is going to win. We'd love to see and share your thoughts.
And for me, I'm also going to agree with you going with Will Power from pole position. I think Will Power is, carrying a lot of positive momentum right now, and especially after that wicked save he made yesterday. Thought he was gonna crash. Heading through the final turn back onto the Indianapolis front stretch. It was really crazy how sideways he got, but didn't crash the car. And now for the NASCAR Cup Series race, Joe, who's going to win it?
Boy, isn't that so? I mean, I feel like it's Talladega. I really think it's going to be probably. I'm going to go out there on a limb. And I'm going to say a team that has won not once, but twice. I'm going to go with John Hunter Nemechek pulling off the ultimate upset.
Oh, that's a really good pick, John Hunter Nemechek. And remember, John Hunter Nemechek was in contention to win in the Talladega race at the beginning of the summer. Yeah, coming to the checkered flag, it was Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones, and John Hunter Nemechek, and Nemechek and Jones end up getting into each other coming to the checkered flag. So I really like that pick, and I'm gonna go out on a limb too, and I think we're going to see a first time Cup Series winner, and I think after everything that happened in the early summer and all of the things that came out from that weekend, I think we're gonna see Bubba Wallace and Richard Petty Motorsports go to victory lane at Talladega.
That'll be a very popular. I know I was thinking about maybe picking them as well. Be really interested in saying. I know we have one person in the chat room comment that it was essentially money that was holding up the lights at Talladega. Yeah, definitely Talladega. If they put that investment to get the lights at the racetrack, I think that will be really huge, especially they could sell out the stands, bring the fans. And I can't imagine how excited Fox or NBC will be if it was like, hey, we got Talladega Saturday night, prime time. That's going to bring in a lot of fans. Will NASCAR or Talladega want to put the money to that? That's another question for another time. That'll do for everything on Grid Live pre-race. We want to thank everyone for joining us. Be sure to follow us and subscribe to us here on YouTube. Definitely visit gridranking.com for all our social media contacts as well. And we encourage everyone to visit Patreon, our Patreon page. Your support will help us grow. One of the things we didn't mention earlier, of course, with the Portland Grand Prix on September 12th, we're hopeful to definitely be there. Of course, we're based out of Portland. That'll be a wonderful first race experience, but if we could have more funds to be to another race, maybe Auto Club or Sonoma, we'll definitely be there and expand our coverage for you, the fans. For Kobe Lammons at the podium finish, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the races.